All right, thank you very much. I just want to congratulate James. I never thought I'd hear a talk about blockchain sustained by a continuous ripple of laughter. And now you're going to hear a talk, if I press this button, you're going to hear a talk about play, which will not be sustained by a continuous ripple of laughter. I'll manage to bore the pants off you on the topic of play. I should remind you that last year at this event, I spoke about the industrialization of data. That is, I presented a talk about data as a resource, much the way that cocoa beans are a resource for making cocoa and chocolate. So I looked at the supply chain of data, and that was pretty boring. But as I gave it, I realized that there was an important part, an animating principle behind the industrial process that certainly doesn't operate as continuously and as effectively in the manufacture of chocolate as it does in the manufacture of digital products. And that is, that's what I want to talk about, the idea that the animating element of the internet is play. So I want to present play then in its context, not as a set of activities, although that's what I have to talk about, but rather as a mindset, as a thing that operates in the mind of the executive or the consumer or any one of the actors in the world to keep the whole show going. Play I chose for this purpose because it's a playful word. It's a word that in many ways speaks to something and its opposite. So we speak about playing to win. We also speak about playing to idle away time. We speak about playing by the rules, or we speak of play when someone disregards the rules. We speak of play as something that brings people together to collaborate, or we think of games which are played against people. We think of the sincerity in play, and we think of the trickery in play. We think of it as a flirtatious activity, or the opposite, a sterile activity that resists coquettishness. It can be charming, or it can be scamming. It's got all those flavors to it. The point is that every one of them has, as its common theme, the notion of interaction. And interaction is what the internet has given us that no previous publication medium was able to give us. So it's play that sustains interaction. The crucial fact about the era we are currently leaving is that attention was expensive. But if you had enough money, you could buy it. Or put it another way, if you were able to buy it, you accumulated a lot of money. So brands were big, marketing was big, media were big, because they had to be, because there was no way to be minor in this game until you got big. Now, there's a tension in the field of entertainment between those who believe in the blockbuster theory of entertainment and those who believe in Chris Anderson's notion of the long tail. That is the tension that operates here between, it could be that we're giving up the era of where attention could only be commanded as a blockbuster resource and entering an era in which attention can be commanded across the entire spectrum of offerings. The problem with the interactive era is that you can't buy attention with money, or you can to some extent, but it's a great deal more difficult. But on the other hand, if you approach a market with a playful mindset, whether that's play in an innocent or a malevolent shade of meaning, we'll come to that, then that playfulness will cause attention to be given freely, and it will not cost very much to the person generating it. So let me proceed for the rest of the talk with a few examples of playfulness. I'll talk about playfulness initially as something that consumers bring to the market. And then I'll show how that actually educates the market to play back to the consumer. So here's a classic broadcast era promotion. Lay's potato chips says we've got to engage customers. So let's allow them to enter a competition to produce the next best Lay's potato chip flavor. And they put up an app that allows people to type in their favorite flavor name. And of course, they have a winner. And the winner comes up with kettle-cooked wasabi ginger. But what they had done unwittingly is they put an app in play that had presented opportunities for people other than Manika. because it allowed people to produce their own flavor variations for no purpose other than to play these private status games, which they then propagated through. And you know, you can have a very pleasant evening tonight just visiting the Lay's site and discovering things. There is almost nothing you can't project through this new literary medium called the side of a potato chip packet. So consumers have taken something that was produced for an instrumental purpose and turned it into a playful object. Emboldened by that, I have been fascinated to see the ways in which manufacturers have taken that license and played it back to the consumer. So some of you will know that just in the last few weeks, KFC managed to run out of chicken in the UK, not globally, but they managed to get into a supply chain tangle that meant that there were KFC branches that had no chicken. Now, you know, what are you going to do about that? You want to apologize. If you don't go to the edge, Reddit will, so they go to the edge. I don't think that could have been done a year ago. You know, I think that is engaging in a level of playfulness that simply has become enabled by what others have done. Now, you may have seen the way that Wendy's is playing with its consumers. This was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, so even the dullest of us will have noticed it. But it has become such a trope in the language, in the world of Twitter and so on, that consumers are baiting Wendy's to see what they can say. So in this one, my friend wants to go to McDonald's. What should I tell her or him? Find new friends. You know, it's become extremely rude, extremely edgy, and infinitely fascinating. Not all play, as I said at the start, is innocent. A lot of play is precisely malevolent. You know, the Facebook situation is not one that's certainly one of play, and particularly the use of personality quizzes to generate data to complement the work of Cambridge Analytica. But I have here two examples that I think should be integral to the HBS course load. I think we should write cases, first of all, on Justin Cooler, because Justin is a real window into the motivations and success and failure of fake news. He'll tell you more about fake news than you're going to read from any source other than a well-written HBS case. And the paradox is that Justin is a liberal. Justin has no interest in advancing the right-wing cause. And yet during the 2016 election, he constructed a newspaper called the Denver Guardian and populated it with news stories that were totally fake, that were driven by the fact that he followed some of the right-wing bloggers. And when asked, well, why did you go for the right wing? Why didn't you help the cause you support? He said, it was easier. The work that the bloggers were doing was so over the top and so far from the truth that it was just easier to produce good entertainment out of them. He managed to generate 100 million views over the 8 months up to the election. And his motivation is captured in this quote. It was an addiction. Watching my Google Analytics page in real time after I posted a story was my fix. In other words, he was playing with his audience while he was playing on behalf of the interests of a group that he didn't even identify with. That's pretty complex layers of motivation. The other one that I think really works as an insight into practices of play that our students need to know, because they have both innocent and malevolent implications, is the work of Jesse Wilms, written up best in The Atlantic. And in fact, one of my colleagues was quoted in that article, so I think he's a natural candidate to write the case, and that's Ben Edelman, because Ben understands the complexities of the process by which Jesse built a very large number of products selling ASEA health products in a variety of forms, with endorsements, with hip. He didn't just create one brand. It's not just that he created a classic fraud. He created such a fuss around this miracle drug, berry, I guess it is, that it became for a while something that people thought, I should know about this. It seems to be all over the web. And if people found that they'd been caught out by the process, he would quickly generate a number of sites that would endorse what he had done. So he would become his own choir. Eventually, he paid $360 million to the FTC. This many of you have seen. It was, what work of art do you look like? You take your photograph, you put it up, and back comes an answer from Google, or Facebook made extensive use of it. Why? Because Google was training its facial recognition algorithm. So we were being invited into work that they needed to get done. Some of you will know I'm Poppy. I'm Poppy represents, I think, a digital path to celebrity as a singer. So we've seen what Lady Gaga did in a more of a mass era. We've seen what Elvis Presley did in a very, very different era. I'm Poppy represents how you do it in a world of play. She creates this facade. She exemplifies it through a 10-minute YouTube video called I'm Poppy. The lyrics of the song are I'm Poppy. That's the extent of it. They are repeated, fairly rapid cadence for 10 minutes, and many people watch it to the end. What are they doing? Well, they're helping her become famous. But to switch topics for a second, you may have seen the reaction videos of a group of very clever people called the Fine Brothers, who hit upon the idea that we will show how incongruous reactions attract people. And one of the earliest ones was what we saw played out today, which is what's a rotary phone, and how do you think a child will react to a rotary phone? And of course, it's like, well, where do I push it? What's this dial on the thing? So they have established a genre called the reaction video. They've lost control of it, but in the process, they've built themselves a pretty substantial ad agency that uses or digital agency that uses the devices of reaction videos to propagate who else but Poppy. So kids react to Poppy. It strikes me as a kind of a logical meshing of two genres. And if that's clever, then what about Poppy reacts to kids reaction to Poppy? And now you've got a principle that you can extend one step further. Kids react to Poppy reacting to kids. So what I want to do in the breakout, if anyone wants to come along and play with me, is I want to contend that play built the internet, and I want to argue that the notion of play is missing in many business environments, in particular this one. So we have a set of principles that we drum into people. Accounting is the language of business. Cash flow is a crucial element of business. It helps to know who your market is, what your frame of reference is, in particular, the notion of what business are you in, and then the idea that brands are built on trust. And I can violate every one of those propositions. So did it matter that Amazon didn't ask what business it was in, that rather it played, as I think Sunil very vividly demonstrated, it played with a variety of potential businesses that it might be in and found which ones worked? Would it have helped Instagram to sit around at night and worry about the cash flow? Would it matter that the Facebook is not trusted by its users? I don't think so. I don't think, I could be wrong about that one. In other words, nothing on the internet seems to me to be boring, predictable, or safe. Everything has the spirit of play. Internet culture is the explanatory factor for almost everything that annoys us about the damn 21st century. In particular, the US just elected a person with no prior job experience who tweets for a living and is recruiting a cabinet made up of Fox News talent. That you could not have imagined in a pre-internet culture. You wouldn't have known what a tweet was, for one thing. So that's my idea. We get together and talk about how we play and how we avoid being played. Thanks a lot.